Hello, my name is Logan Todd, and I'm a student here at Penn State University. And today I'd like to talk to you about accessibility in web design and why it's important. Well, why should we care about internet accessibility? This is something I've been asked many times when I talk about accessibility with computer scientists and computer engineers. Well, there are a lot of reasons, but first, we want to build websites that are able to accommodate all sorts of users from all sorts of walks of life and all sorts of different knowledges and understanding of the internet. And if you're going to accommodate users, why not accommodate all users? Well, number two is accommodation makes you a better programmer. By accommodating users in your web design and building it from the ground up, it makes you a better programmer. You learn how to make a piece of content that more people will be able to use. You learn how to be able to do more complex challenges and embedding more important information into a given piece of media or a given video. It's extremely important as a programmer because we're always learning and we're always becoming better. Well, three, it's also economically beneficial. If your website is designed for people with disabilities, if your website's designed to be accessible, you'll get more traffic than a website that isn't, because people who do have auditory processing issues or visual processing issues or musculatory issues will use your website over one that isn't designed for them. And finally, in my opinion, the best reason for why we should do this is it's just quite simply the right thing to do. Creating a website that everyone will be able to use and everyone is designed to use is what we should do. And by creating our websites to be accessible, it makes it so that we can incorporate everyone into our website and make a better website just fundamentally overall. Well, now that we've recognized that we want to be designing websites with accessibility in mind, how do you make an accessible website? Well, step number one is quite straightforward, but is something that a lot of us just fail to recognize. It's to realize that you will be serving disabled users on your website. It, as much as it may be you know, obvious to you or me that, there will be disabled users using your website, a lot of the time when we're designing our website, we just don't design it with them in mind. And this is a critical misunderstanding because you're alienating those people from using your website. Well, how do we make our websites more accessible? Well, what we can do is you could try to consider all the different people that will be using your website and try to take all of their different issues and accommodations that they need into mind. But this is quite simply very difficult and very time consuming. So there is a standard that you should follow instead called WCAG. So what is WCAG? Well, WCAG stands for the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. It's an international standard created by the World Wide Web Consortium through input from people with disabilities and from programmers at the world's largest programming firms and professors specializing in the field. And what it strives to do is create a industry standard that serves as a basis for you to create a website off of that will be accessible to all of its different users. Some important things about the standard are it's constantly evolving. It is constantly getting better and improving and constantly adapting to new standards and new web formats, and it always is strives to create a more consistent experience. It's an industry standard, meaning that just about anywhere where you're going to be creating a website for a group that needs to be regulated or for a group that wants to be accessible, you're going to be programming to WCAG standards. So it's an important thing to get to know to learn. It's also extremely thorough. It's incredibly large and it has an incredibly large set of depth to it. It has anything that ranges from all different types of disabilities to all different types of content you could want to put on your website. And it's designed with all of these people and their disabilities in mind. It's designed to be a useful, thorough set of regulations, and because of it, programmers can be more confident when programming websites that their website will be a accessible website. You can visit this standard by going to www.web3.org/WAI/WCAG21/quickref for the reference guide and reference manual. Well, how do I use WCAG? Well, WCAG has a set of regulations that are available online. They're all free to use and they're all publicly available. But the important parts of it are the fact that there are a set of different types of requirements that you can meet, whether those are requirements for videos, whether those are requirements for text, whether those are requirements for different types of media. And by choosing the type of website you're trying to program, you can see different code snippets for examples of what you're trying to create, or you can see different websites that have already met WCAG accessibility and how they do it. It's also a regulation that is widely used, so meeting it is not that difficult because so many people have. A lot of the example code you'll find online already meets the set of standards. My final piece of recommendation for people trying to program websites with accessibility in mind are to use accessibility linters. We all know what a linter is. It's a piece of code that runs in our code editors that makes it easier to code. Generally, it makes it easier by giving you different information on where your variables are, or by making it clear that you have a syntax error. Well, there are special linters that are designed with accessibility in mind. They're easy to use and install, and they're free. What they do is they look through your code, through your HTML file, and through your any given file type that you're working with, and as you're creating it, as you're programming it, it'll point out issues that are against the WCAG standard, whether that's your contrast in your buttons not being up to the requirement, or whether that's a lack of comments on different embedded images, or whether it's your tabbing structure has been flawed in its design. All of these are extremely helpful when programming, and it makes it so that creating a website with accessibility in mind is extremely easy. The most popular one is one created by Deque. You can find it by Googling accessibility linters Deque, and it'll come up with an installation guide. And it works on tons of different text editors from our favorites like VS Code. But it also works on Docker and all sorts of other applications that programmers widely use all the time. So that's my recommendation for accessibility linters, and my final recommendation for how to create a website. Thank you for taking your time to learn about how to make an accessible website, and I hope you learn the information that I've described to you today. I hope you take it, and I hope you keep it in mind for when programming websites. You're not required to program every website you make with accessibility in mind. However, I would recommend that every website you do make, you at least have this in the back of your mind. You understand that you will have users that aren't as abled as you, and you will need to create a website that appeals to them and is accessible for them. Thank you for your time.